Hello you wonderful people, I'm Amy or AWayfaringFrog and welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new here. Today I was really inspired for the speed build to something for Pride, because fairly recently we got a base game update where we got several new items. There was a new Pride flag and it was like a little knitted one. There was also some more wall decor for Pride, as well as a couple of new beds, which is amazing because we haven't had a new bed in base game for so long, and they're so colourful and so pretty. There are also a couple of plain swatches. There's like a plain white and a plain black. So they're really nice and versatile in that sense if you don't want to have a super colourful room but you still want like a nice, more modern looking bed. It's so good. So I really like this update, and honestly anything that comes into The Sims 4 just for free is really nice, so I'm definitely not going to complain about that. But we are in the world of Ciudad Enamorada, which is the world that came with Lovestruck. So if you're not familiar with that expansion pack, this is sort of a more Mexican inspired world, and it's all about romance. So it felt also just like the perfect place to build this. I was mostly inspired by how colourful all of the townhouses were though in the background, so you can sort of see the area that we're building in, which is very built up, lots of townhouses, and it just felt perfect for this build. I was a bit unsure on what kind of wallpapers to use though. I have now settled on the colour scheme, as you can see, but for the pink one, there's an exterior and an interior, just kind of normal stucco looking wallpaper from Lovestruck. And the pink one is so intensely vibrant. I can't actually remember if I showed that on camera. That will have already passed if I did. But it's just way too much. So I ended up using the interior version, which is what you can see on the outside of the build. So even though it's designed for the interior of a house, it just felt like a more reasonable colour. So I went for that one. I did also put a little heart pool in the back. Those fairy lights in front of it do end up disappearing because they just don't end up fitting, which was kind of sad, but I put fairy lights in other ways instead. But the tile that's in the pool was fantastic. It's again from Lovestruck, and it's this rainbow tile, and I had to use it. So there is a lot of colour in this build, a lot of rainbows. That was the entire intention, so I hope you enjoy it. I did also, while I was building out the fence here, which I changed my mind about so many times, so I cut out quite a bit of this process. I kind of wanted the fence to be different for the townhouse versus the actual more commercial lot. The commercial one being on the right, so the pink build, that's the cafe. I wanted the fences to be a little bit different, but I was just really struggling to pick the right colour and everything, so I do cut a bit of the process out. But essentially, while I was looking for rainbow themed things, I ended up discovering something from Get Famous, I believe it was. I think it's just kind of one of those backdrops for the acting career where they fill out the space with a load of weird decor. And one of them is a giant rainbow with little clouds either side of it. And that actually, without even me meaning to, fit perfectly on the front of the build, just on that fence. So I had to use that. So I ended up grabbing that very shortly, and I'll pop that onto the front of the build. And I really just think it helps brighten up the space, and I just love that about it. It was such a weird item. I don't think I've ever put that in a build before. So it was nice to be able to use it. I was also trying to do something a bit different with the entrance to the townhouse, so I had this open stairwell, which I thought was a bit of fun. It was kind of dark in there though, so I tried to add a few windows, but I didn't want it to look like the building, so I didn't want to add too many windows. I did also massively struggle with the floor plan, I'm not gonna lie, so I cut a bit of that process out. It's just a lot smaller than it might look, and I was just really struggling with where to put the stairs. I ended up finding something that worked out, so I managed to get a bedroom downstairs, which I decorated more for a teen, and I decorated that with all of the trans colours, so the pink and blues, and I just thought that was a really nice touch. So I figured this sim who lives there is probably trans, and then their parents who live upstairs, I used just the basic rainbow swatch from that new bed. I figured that they're probably a couple of lesbians who live there. I put lots of I mean, I put lots of pride flags around the entire build, but I like the idea of a couple of women who have adopted a child and they're all living together here, and to try and sort of help bring the community together, they wanted to make a little gaming cafe dedicated to people from the LGBTQ communities. So that was the whole inspiration about this. So I had a lot of fun with this one. I just love how colourful it is, and I don't think I've ever built anything like this before. I don't really build in Ciudad Enamorada much at all. I think the only time I've ever built there, to be honest, is when Lovestruck first came out. I did a big family home in the kind of style of this world, but this is the first time I've done some townhouses here. So it was really nice to come back to a world that I haven't built in and have a go at doing something a bit different here. And it's just so colourful. I love it. There was also another rainbow item which I discovered, and it was a base game door. So I ended up adding that into the bathroom. I was mostly going for slightly more pastel colour schemes just because that was mostly what all of the items came in. So whilst I did want to make it super colourful, I didn't want too many like really bright colours in comparison to the more pastel ones. I also added these bushes in, which were from one of the recent events. It's just the normal base game bush, but with little lights on it, and the lights are rainbow. So I went ahead and added those. And I've now got that nice big rainbow from Get Famous at the front of the build, and I think it really just makes the entire build pop, and it's very clear what this entire build is all about. You might also be wondering what that big square with all the colourful drawings on the front of the yellow and blue townhouse is, and that's actually from City Living. It's one of those items that your Sims can just spray paint. It's a bit like a mural, and this one's actually designed to look like a garage door, which is kind of what I wanted that bottom part to kind of represent. It doesn't end up being a garage, A, because there aren't any cars in The Sims 4, and B, because I wanted that to be the living room. And it's not actually an accessible garage door, so it is just completely aesthetic, really. But it doesn't mean that your Sims can have an extra activity by being able to paint that. But I brought some Sims here while I was building and just got them to paint a few variations. There were a lot of different ones. They first started with one of like an octopus making takoyaki, which, if you're not aware, is a Japanese snack made of octopus. So that felt a bit weird. I didn't really want to use that one, mostly because it just didn't match the colour scheme, and also it was just totally the wrong vibe. But I ended up settling on this one because it was nice and colourful and matched the colour scheme that I had going on here, which granted is pretty much every colour under the rainbow, but I like this one the most. I am now just doing a little bit of landscaping, and you might have seen on camera a bit as well that whenever I tried to do one of the low-lying fences around a planter pot area in the fenced off portion of the build, it just wasn't showing up. I'd draw it, but it would be invisible. And I don't fully know why that is, but I ended up figuring out a workaround for it, so I did cut that off camera. It was like I couldn't build a fenced off room within a fenced room, if that makes sense. So I just had to kind of make the game not think that the garden area is a room in sort of the Sims 4 functionality, where you can select the entire thing as one unit, and just try and split it up that way, and then it let me put the fences inside. It was very odd, but anyway, you can see that I managed it in the end. I did just cut a lot of that out of the speed build because it wasn't fun to watch. It was very frustrating. And I am now decorating the pool area. I know I wanted to use the Riviera Retreat kit here. It's one of my favorite kits still. I don't use it very often, but when I do build a pool area, it's so perfect, and I just love using it. So I made sure to include a lot of that here. It just made it feel very nice and cozy, and whilst you can't actually have Sims come on a date to these kind of residential but also small business lots, which is a weird thing about businesses and hobbies. I don't really know why that is, but I feel like this is still not a specifically for a date lot. I thought it would just be nice for Sims to come along and be really friendly with one another and just make friends and build their network and community. So even though I do have a big love heart pool, it is just more just about meeting new people and playing games with them. So I do go ahead and add loads of different games in here. Originally, I was hoping to maybe get in a little room for computers so your Sims can play video games on there, but I couldn't end up figuring out a way to fit that in. So I mostly just used the games tables. There's also the video game consoles and things like that. But there are computers in the townhouse portion, so whilst I envisioned them cordoning that off from the general public and making that residential only, you could open that up if you really wanted to. Also, I feel like I should warn you, you've probably already noticed, but this is actually quite a long video, and I still cut out quite a few of the more boring rooms, like a couple of the bathrooms and hallways and such, but it's just such a big build. It's basically 2 houses in one, and I am not efficient when I build. I have so much decision paralysis, so again, I cut most of that out, but it's just, there's a lot. So I hope you have a snack or a cup of tea or a hot drink of any kind, because we're going to be here for a while. But I hope you enjoy the process regardless. I really had so much fun building this, and I think it would be kind of useful for your Sims in game, just because I figure it would be a nice place for them to come to, just to hang out and just visit Ciudad and Enamorada, I suppose. I also, because I haven't played much in this world, I didn't realize how much stuff around in the world there is. So stuff that's not on lots, but just around. There's a nice little park very nearby to this build, and your Sims can swim in the pond there, and it just seems really cute. The build that this is being built on as well, or sorry, the lot this is being built on, is actually the bar which came in Lovestruck. So I did go ahead and demolish that because it just seemed like the perfect place to put it. There is also the Love Hotel opposite, so that's the one that's kind of a rabbit hole that your Sims can interact with but then disappear into for a period of time. There's also a little event in game where you'll get a call from some, like, I think they call them a wealthy weirdo, and they'll ask you to meet them at the front of that rabbit hole area. So I thought it was kind of fun having that gameplay aspect nearby to this lot in case you did want to play around with those features of Lovestruck. I was also really happy with the flooring that I picked. I was desperate to not use the normal base game big, like, little 2x2 tile made of concrete everywhere, so I went for this gravel instead, and then the base game, like, little orangey stepping stone areas actually have the same color gravel underneath, so they combine really well together, and I just thought it looked nice. But we are now just popping into the cafe area of the build, and I was considering using one of the little mini fridges at first just because it felt kind of cute and I don't really use them very often, but they're just so skinny, they don't really fit next to the counters very well, so I ended up switching it out just for a normal refrigerator. Sorry, I've got a cat just meowing in the background. I don't know if you can hear that, but oh my gosh, they're so cute. So, life update, I suppose. I'm actually looking after a couple of cats of my friends because they're going away for a month. So they need someone to look after the cats, and I am more than willing, since I've got my own house now, so I'm not renting anymore. I can have pets here, and I'm just really excited to have them. So this has been loads of fun so far. As of recording this voiceover, they've only been here for one night, but they're still exploring the house, and it's just really fun to have them around. I was kind of hoping they'd want to chill out in my office a bit more though, but she's meowing again. But she just wants to get into my bedroom instead, and my partner is a little bit allergic, so we really don't want their fur getting everywhere. So we figured that we'd keep them out of that room, but she is determined. If you do want to see some cat photos as well, be sure to check out my socials, which are in the description down below. I usually post just random, like, life updates or fun things that I'm crafting on Blue Sky, so feel free to check that out. I do also post on Instagram, but mostly just Sims content on there. But anyway, I have now just talked over the cafe part of the build. So I ended up using the new item, which is from Businesses and Hobbies, just for the cafe section where you can order and make your teas and coffees and such. And I am so, so happy that we finally have a new cafe. They first came in Get Together, I believe, and there was only one cafe item. And it was really sad because it's one style and it's a really funny shape. If you've ever seen any of my other builds, I've done a cat cafe before businesses and hobbies, sadly not with businesses and hobbies. And I also made the roost from Animal Crossing, and I had to use that really horrible looking cafe item in both of those, and it made me so sad. So it's really nice to be able to have this one, and it's got such cute colors and it's really nice and modern. So I just love that. So I was sure to use that in here, and thankfully all of the little coffee bags on it are super colourful too, so that helped bring in more of the colour. But I am also just creating the kind of video gaming space here, so I use these blow-up sofas, which are from that Back to the Future event, is what I always call it. I always forget what it's called. Blast from the Past, maybe. And they just, again, were so colourful and fun, so I was really excited to include them in here. And then I created a bit of a gallery wall using the TV item from Tiny Living, just because it seemed like a cute little item to have. It's also a bookshelf as well as a speaker, so your Sims can do lots of things with that. And it's all in one nice little unit, which is one of the reasons I love Tiny Living so much. And then I just added loads of clutter to the wall around it to create this gallery wall. I do end up changing the swatches of some of the flags because they are duplicated at the moment. It was just more, I was laying them out at first to get an idea of how I wanted to put everything on the wall. So again, I did cut a bit of that process out because my decision paralysis meant that it took me a while to figure out how to combine all of those on the wall. I also had Google open in the background because I'm not familiar with all of the different pride flags, so I was researching each one to try and get a good variety of them within the whole build. So hopefully you can see that throughout the process. Oh, and of course I had to use that rainbow tile again in the kitchen area. It's just so fun and it really helps bring in loads of the colour. I end up using it again in the townhouse, but it has more of a like a pastel swatch to it too, so I included that one a bit more in the townhouse. I added this little table here as well, again somewhere for your Sims to just drink a bit of coffee or tea or whatever it is that they wanted to order. And I ended up adding that, like the Who's Who guessing game, I forget what it's called, but again it came in Love Struck, and your Sims can basically play some kind of woohoo game, or I've forgotten what else it's called, but it's just a little board game to get to know, or card game to get to know other Sims, I think is the idea. I also believe it's meant to be a little bit like Cards Against Humanity, perhaps? I'm not really sure. Or maybe like a Have You Ever sort of game. But anyway, so I included that in this room as well. There are a couple of them throughout the build. And then just adding a bit more decor to the space, I ended up using these curtains, which are from the movie pack, but they were just such a nice little pastel pink colour, and they fit in nicely when I used Tool just to knock them down a bit, because I wanted to include them around the entire space, but because I had the kitchen there, they intersected too much with the counters when they were full size, so I just sized them down. And then because curtains like to stay at a specific height even when you size them down, I just needed to use Tool to force them down a bit further. And then onto the second floor of the cafe, I did include some of these kind of board game tables. So there's plenty for your Sims to do. They can pick what activity they want from that. They can build puzzles, depending on what packs you've got actually. So growing together, you can make puzzles. I mean, you can gamble if you've got Journey to Batu. And then there's just card games, I think, from Get Together. So there's plenty for your Sims to get up to while they're here. That is also where the public cafe bathroom is. So I used the new toilet stalls from the Business and Hobbies expansion pack, but we end up decorating that quite a bit later on. So for now, I am just realizing that I could add in some gaming posters from Little Simsy's Comfy Gamer Kit. So I went ahead and included quite a bit of clutter from that around. I did actually struggle at some stage to fit in everything that I wanted, but I managed to figure out a way that it looked quite nice. And there's quite a few rainbowy items that I sort of forget about. Like this little LED light that I've got just above one of the pride flags in the kitchen area. That one, I think that pride flag is the non-binary one, but correct me if I'm wrong. I researched a lot of them and now they've all kind of merged in my head. But that was just a cute little LED light that I forgot came from high school years. It's just one of the many swatches of that, and I've dotted the same light around on the other gallery wall too. So it was nice to be able to use that. I was also excited to get these ghost chairs in from the wedding game pack. They do have a rainbow swatch as well, but there's something about it that just looks too messy. So I preferred the option of just including different colors of that same chair throughout. So I used the purple, pink and green swatches instead. And I thought it just ended up looking a lot nicer. And then under the stairs, I wanted to include a little bit of storage here because it was looking a little bit bland and I didn't know what else to include here. So this was kind of, I figured, where the games would be kept so your Sims could go and pick a board game and things. If you've ever been to a gaming cafe, that's generally what they have, like a giant wall full of different games that you can play. And then you'll kind of pick one up and go back to your seat and play that. So that was the idea behind it. I also added a bit of little gaming memorabilia here and there. And then from Little Simsies kit again, there's this little UFO lamp that has a rainbow coming out of it. So that just felt really perfect too. Hopefully I managed to get every item that has a rainbow swatch on it in this build, but maybe I missed some. I mean, it's already super colourful, so I don't think anyone will be too worried about it if I did miss one or two here and there. For this little nook under the stairs as well, I had so much fun with these high school years cubby holes. I haven't really used them like this before. I generally just pick one swatch and then use them kind of sparingly. I don't find a lot of use out of these items at all in my normal gameplay, but I just think they looked so good here and they really help tie in all of the different colours from the room. If you did want to download this build from the gallery all as well, it is available on the Sims 4 gallery just under my EA ID, AWayfaringFrog. It's also under the hashtag AWayfaringFrog, and you can find all the details of that in the description down below, alongside all of the lot details, so where to place it, how much it costs, and things like that. I'm not gonna lie, it is quite an expensive build. I think it ended up being around 150 simoleons, but it's an entire house and cafe. So I feel like that's not too surprising. And you could always just place it in your world if you wanted. Get some random Sims moved in and assign one of the businesses to them. So then you could visit it instead of owning it. There is a bit of a weird thing about the businesses and hobbies expansion is that unlike other kind of community lots, the business is tied to the sim, not the lot. So it means you can't download this off the gallery and it already be a functioning gaming cafe. You kind of have to set all of that up yourself, which is a bit unfortunate, but I would just recommend putting in like the play video game option and also like drink tea and coffee and grab food and stuff like that. So it also, I suppose, allows people to be a bit more creative with what they want their Sims to actually get up to in these spaces. But it's kind of frustrating because you also need to make sure that you bring a sim here and set that up. Otherwise, it won't function if you visit at all. So be sure to bear that in mind if you do want to download it. I think there's plenty of information online at this stage about how best to set up a build that you're not going to have your Sims live in. So hopefully you should be able to find that information fairly easily. But at this point, we have pretty much finished the cafe side of things. I'm just decorating a little space upstairs, which is the top floor of the cafe area, and then that opens up onto this really nice little balcony where I put a picnic blanket because, again, I did want to make sure there were some woohoo spots. It's always nice to have them on lots, I find, because, again, even though you can't technically bring your Sims on actual dates here, you can always pretend. So I thought it would be nice to have that. And then I just included a bit more clutter here and there to make it look used and like Sims were actually playing games while they're visiting. But if you are enjoying the video, please be sure to hit that like button. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and enable notifications so you'll know when I next upload a video. I always upload at 5 p.m. British time. So at the moment that's British summertime because recently we changed the clocks. So it went forward an hour. So normally it would be Greenwich Mean Time, but not at the moment. So I don't know if like the country that you might be from may not have done something similar. So there might be some differences in when I upload it. But as far as I'm concerned, it's going up at the same time every week. Just depending on the time of year, it just might be an hour earlier or later. But anyway, I am now just finishing off the bathroom. It's very simple in here. This is the public bathroom, and I just added in a few of these items from Get to Work, like the hand towels. I also added the little bins from the pastel pop kit because again, they were super colourful and I thought they were fun to add in. Otherwise, the space is fairly simple in that there's not a lot in it, but it's so bright and colourful. It just feels really cluttered, which I liked about that. So I thought it was fun. And I picked the swatch for one of the mirrors from Lovestruck. It's got two versions of it in the catalogue. There's just a plain one and then one with little pictures on it. And I just like the idea of Sims coming to visit and maybe popping like a little photo of who they've been hanging out with in the cafe or something there, or writing a little note and adding it to the mirror. So I just thought that was a bit of fun. And now we are into the residential area of the build. So I'm starting with the living room, which I put downstairs. Again, because you actually enter onto the second floor rather than the first floor or ground floor. This is technically where I suppose the garage would be, but because I didn't want to have a garage, it became a living room instead. I was also a bit struggling with the right-hand side of this space, just opposite where the stairwell is, because it just felt really weirdly open. So I do end up switching out what I've got there a bit later. I just add like a bookshelf to help bring some height to the wall because it just looked really weird. I don't know, it just looked too empty. So I wasn't a fan of that at first. So it does change a bit later. And then under the stairs, one of my favourite things to pop under these is just a little desk nook. So I went ahead and included that here. I figured whatever teenage sim is living in the bedroom just behind the sofas, they probably use this little area as their desk. So that was kind of the idea with that. Because their room is so small, I couldn't actually fit a desk into their room, so I thought it would be nice for them to have this one. And then there is actually another desk upstairs in one of the hallways, so I figured the parents would probably use that one. So there's plenty for your Sims to do, and hopefully routing around the build shouldn't be too difficult. There is one slight problem though. When I was playtesting, I got a Sim to cook something in the kitchen within the cafe. But because I've got a normal stove in the kitchen in the townhouse, it gave me all of the options. But I didn't put a hob in the cafe version because it just felt like something you probably wouldn't have in a cafe. But then it meant that depending on what I selected, they'd start cooking in the cafe kitchen and then go all the way upstairs to the townhouse to finish off the cooking because they needed the hob. So there is that to consider. You might end up wanting to delete the fridge if that does become a problem, just the one in the cafe, because then hopefully they'll stay away from the oven in that room and everything. But just something to bear in mind. It's a bit frustrating that you can't tell them like specifically where they're cooking, but hopefully they didn't go down to the cafe kitchen when I got them to cook in the townhouse kitchen. So I'm really hoping that gameplay wise it's fine and they just stay put, but you might just end up needing to delete the appliances in the cafe. You don't actually need them. I just mostly put them there for aesthetic. And again, I suppose if your Sims were visiting rather than owning this lot, it might be nice to be able to bake like a little cake or something, which you can do because I've added the little oven from Dream Home Decorator. It's just the countertop oven, which is why there's no hob. So there's that to bear in mind. But we are now in the teenagers' room, and as I mentioned, I went very trans color scheme in here. So I used this nice wallpaper from high school years, which I felt like paired really well with the bed. And I also figured that maybe the sim would be a bit crafty. I was wanting to include like a nice little hobby for them. So I did add in a few knitting items here and there. And I also popped this little Trashly Blarfy toy in there, and I thought it would be really cute to imagine that it was the teenager who knitted the little jumper for Trashly. So I thought that was adorable. And I just love that little Bluffy. I think it's so cute. I really like some of the new ones that they've been doing. I've said it before, but I really love the one from like the kids camping kit. It's kind of like it's like a Bigfoot. I think it's a Bigfoot stuffy. And that one's so cute. And it comes in so many really nice swatches. Whereas I feel like some of the other ones are very, very vibrant. And sometimes I just want to do something a bit more neutral. So it's nice to have those options. I did also want to include quite a bit of clutter in this teenager's room because that just felt realistic. I feel like teenagers can be messy and have a lot of stuff as they're growing up and figuring out who they are and things. So I did add in quite a bit of that clutter. I also added this item onto the floor, which is just, it's stuff that they can walk over. But I learned while playtesting this that they can't walk over the back. So I ended up having to switch around how that was oriented, and I popped it a bit more under the wardrobe instead. So everything is accessible by your Sims except like the left hand part of the wardrobe. So if you clicked on the clothes there and told your Sims to change, they'd complain saying they can't access it. But there's like an extra little section of the rack on the right, just above where I put the yoga mat, and they can access that one. So it is functional, you just need to make sure that you click on the correct section, if that makes sense. But it was really weird. I always thought that your Sims could completely walk over that little like messy rug item from high school years, but apparently not. So I learned that while I was playtesting. Again, always important to playtest. It's a bit of a pain to have to do. I don't enjoy the process of playtesting because I'm like, oh, I've built it now, I just want to move on. But I think it's really useful, so I do try to make sure I always playtest before I upload things to the gallery. Very rarely I might forget. I did post one recently, which I think was my frog breeder build, which I totally forgot to playtest. And then when I playtested it, it worked. But it was really bizarre because the Sims kept taking off, like they'd change into their swimwear in order to walk into the building. They'd never climb into any body of water, but just because it was a build on top of a pond, I don't know if they glitched out and thought that they were touching water, so they needed to be in their swimwear. But it was so weird. It was really strange. So that's what I get for not playtesting that one. But honestly, I also don't know how I'd have fixed it because I've built on top of ponds before and that hasn't happened. So I think it would have taken quite a lot of fixing. And if you watched that video, which I would recommend because amazingly enough, I really like frogs. But if you watched that video, you might know that I had to re-record several sections of that build because I'm a dum-dum and just didn't have my OBS settings correct for several times when I was recording. So that was fun. And at that point, I'd finished the build and I was like, I'm so done here. So I think that's why I forgot to playtest that one. It was just a bit traumatic. But anyway, there is that to bear in mind. Your Sims will just strip off every time they want to visit the frog breeding house, if you did want to play in that, which I think is kind of funny. But we are now decorating the kitchen in the townhouse, and I think the space is so cute. I really love these chairs from Lovestruck in this pastel green and pastel pink, and they tie in with this Dream Home Decorator rug so well. And that's just got all of the colors. So it works perfectly in here. I did also include this little tea item, which I think is from Get Together. I forget where that's from. It might even be Get to Work. No, it must be Get Together because Café's first came from that pack. So I think it's Get Together. But it's just so colorful. So again, it was perfect here. I also included this little Dream Home Decorator shelfie drawer item thing, but just stuffed it into the counter and then raised it up a little bit to look like a bread box was the idea behind that. And I just thought that was a bit of fun. We don't really have that many bread boxes in the game. We just have, I don't even know if there's a base game one. There's one from the Country Kitchen Kit, and there's also one from Parenthood, but I don't remember if there's a base game version too. So anyway, I just thought that was a nice version of a little bread box instead. I also added in the cake stand from the Party Essentials kit, or the not so essential party kit. I do really like that kit. I think it's got some fun items, but to pay £5, and I think it's also just $5, I don't know what it is in euros, probably also 5, to pay that for like 3 items that I like is kind of steep. But I mean, I did, so clearly I'm stupid. But it's just kind of, it's a weird kit. I do enjoy it. I think it's kind of useful, but I probably wouldn't recommend that one if there's loads of kits that you don't own and you're trying to figure out which one to buy. I would not recommend the Party Essentials kit. Like, you don't need that cake stand. It's fine. You can just use something from, like, there's little cake items from Get Together, and it's just not important. But I figured I've got it, I might as well throw it in, and it's got some fun swatches that match with the rainbow theme. So I went ahead and included that. I also decorated the toilet downstairs, or actually it's a full bathroom next to the teenagers room. I didn't show that on camera though. It's just a 3x1 section, and I used the Love Struck shower that they can walk over. And then in the ensuite, the master bedroom upstairs as well, as you can see, that's fully decorated now. It was very simple, and the video was super long as it was, so I didn't want to show that on camera. I did use an item that really frustrated me in that bathroom though, and it was from the bathroom clutter kit, the little towel rail, and it had this really great swatch of super colourful towels. I think they've got like a unicorn on one and then the others blue and pink, but the stupid bar that they go on is the most ugly gold colour I've ever seen. I don't understand why the Sims team insist on using that gold colour. They used it loads for Get Famous, and I feel like it's been getting a lot better. That kind of gold colour has disappeared from the more recent packs, but I can't believe it's in the bathroom clutter kit. I used it anyway because I liked the actual towels so much, but I really hate that gold. So yeah, it's a shame when they include that colour, in my opinion. I much prefer these softer looking golds that they've included in like that new gallery wall item from the base game update. That's really cute. I did struggle to find that though. It's not in the normal picture category, it's in like the wall decor bit. And then I also got this base game picture above the bed, and that one came in an update a while back. I think that's actually painted by a real simmer, and then they put it into the game, and it just looked really cute. And because I was trying to pull in quite a bit of purple into this room because it was a colour I hadn't used very much in the rest of the house, it just fits so perfectly, so I included that in here. I also threw in a couple of other colours like this pink wardrobe from high school years, and also that little shell armchair which is from Love Struck. And then just on their balcony I added in just a couple of items for them to use before we're heading up to the roof. And this is very simple. It's just got a couple of sun lounges as well as a barbecue and a couple of chairs. I don't show the garden because I felt like the area around the cafe was already so much more interesting to watch. The video was again so long already, but you will see the garden in the screenshots. But we are now coming to the end of the speed build portion of the video, so if you have been enjoying it, please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and enable notifications so you'll know when I next upload a video. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you have a great rest of your day, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye for now.